Hare Krishna. This is the last video in the series of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Gaya. In this video, we will hear about the start of Sankirtana movement by Lord Chaitanya in Navadvipa. Early every morning, all his students would assemble for their studies. However, when he who is the master of the three worlds sat and began to lecture, nothing but Krishna would appear upon his tongue. The students asked, "What is the perfect understanding of the alphabets?" The Lord replied, "Lord Narayaea is situated in all the letters of the alphabet." The student asked, "How were the letters of the alphabet perfected?" The Lord replied, "The merciful glance of Lord Krishna created the alphabet." The students responded, "O Pandita, please give us the correct understanding." The Lord said, "At every moment one should remember Lord Krishna. I am describing the worship of Lord Krishna, which is the purpose of all the scriptures. In their beginning, middle, and end, the scriptures only teach the worship of Lord Krishna." Upon hearing the Lord's explanation, the student began to laugh. One murmured, "The cause of this strange explanation is an imbalance of the life air." The student again asked, "From where did you get this idea?" The Lord explained, "This is the ultimate conclusion of scriptures." The Lord said, "If you cannot now understand, then contemplate the matter, and this afternoon I will explain in more details. Each student should go to an asserted place and study his book. In the afternoon he will meet again." Upon hearing the Lord's word, the surprised students tied up their books and left. All the students then went to Gaya and related the words and explanation of the Lord. They said, "Nimai Pandit now declares that all words of the scriptures refer to Lord Krishna alone. After returning from home from Gaya, he talks only of Krishna and gives nothing else as an explanation. He continuously chants the names of Lord Krishna, feeling great ecstasy. Sometimes he laughs aloud, sometimes roars aloud, and sometimes his whole body breaks out into horrification. In this way, different symptoms manifest within him. When he sits down and teaches, he connects the root of every single word to Krishna. All his purports and contemporaries description describes only Krishna. This new transformation in him seems to be so aligned to us. Please, O Master, please tell us what should we do." Gaya Pandita, the jewel-like teacher of Navadvipa, smiled and after listening to the complaints of the students told them, "Go home now and return this afternoon. I will instruct Nimai. I will see that he tutors all of you properly from now on. You may also come with Nimai. Be here with your books this afternoon." Later that afternoon, the Lord visited Gaya Pandita and touched his master's feet with respect. In turn, Gaya Pandita blessed him, saying, "May you become highly learned." He then continued, "My dear Vishwambara, I must tell you something. You know that it is no small matter for a Brahmin to be able to teach. It is a question of good fortune. Your grandfather is none other than Sri Nilambara Chakravarti, and your father is Sri Jagannath Mishra. Both are great scholars. Neither of your parents' families is illiterate, and you yourself are a very able scholar with an exceptional faculty to give contemporaries. Would you say that one achieves the path of devotion to the Lord by giving up his education and learning? In this case, are you not the parent devotee of the Lord? You should learn and study properly from only through proper education and learning, each one become a Vaishnava Brahmin. How can an illiterate Brahmin develop the faculty for discrimination between good and bad, proper and improper? Knowing this, you should chant Krishna's name and continue your education. Go teach the scriptures in the proper way with the proper explanation, and do not try to misconstrue the meaning. It brings me tremendous anxiety, the Lord replied. By your grace and the mercy of your lotus feet, there is no one in Navadvipa who can beat me in any argument, who can refute my arguments and then establish a new and original concept. I will go into the center of town and teach publicly. I would like to see who has the courage to find the faults and mistakes in my commentaries. The teacher Gaya Pandita was very pleased when Vishwambara offered his obeisances to his master and left. Gaya Pandit is such a fortunate and an elevated personality that the disciple offering obeisances to his feet is none other than the Supreme Lord of Saraswati, the goddesses of learning. For what more can Gaya Pandit aspire? His disciple is the most worshipable Lord of the entire universe. Lord Vishwambara walked down the street surrounded by his students like the shining moon surrounded by so many stars against a velvet dark firmament. Lord Vishwambara, whose lotus feet are eternally worshipped by Lakshmi Devi within her heart, sat upon the banks of river Ganga. There he began his explanation and commentaries, establishing, refuting, and then re-establishing different points. The Lord said, in Kali Yuga, the so-called scholars has no idea of conjugation, but receives the title of Bhogacharya. One who has no knowledge of philosophy, he has the audacity to debate. But none of these scholars can ever challenge me. Whatever I establish and whatever I refute, let me see if there is anyone who can dispute them. Like this, the Lord of the universe, Vishwambara, publicly challenged everyone. The scholars who came to pay their respects to Mother Ganga heard Lord Vishwambara's bold words in fearful silence, their scholarly pride broken to pieces. Was there anyone in Navadvipa who could challenge Vishwambara in debate? The Lord continued to speak for 4 hours as if he is in trance, explaining and giving commentaries. It was late in the evening, yet the Lord did not stop. Then the Lord visited another gentleman's house, a very pious Brahmana whose name was Ratnagarbhacharya, whose acquaintance of Lord Vishwambara's father both has been born in the same village. He had 3 sons who were great devotees of the Lord, full of the mellows. They were like the bees which gather nectarian pollens from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Their names were Krishnananda, Jiva, and Yadunanda Kavichandra. Ratnagarbhacharya was a great devotee of the Lord and was very fond of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was at that time reading from Srimad Bhagavatam with great respect and affection. He read, the wives of the Yajna Brahmana saw a beautiful young boy. His complexion was darkish. He wore a golden yellow cloth. He was nicely decorated with flower garlands. Around his neck, a peacock feather slanted sidewise cut off his crown, where precious stones and metals glistened brightly like stars. He was with his friends, and with his left hand he stood leaning against his dear friend. With his right hand he twirled a beautiful lotus flower. His ears were decorated with earrings in the shape of lotus flower. His cheeks carried decorative designs of sandalwood paste, and his sweet smile played on his lotus-like mouth. Spoken with great devotion, these words of Srimad Bhagavatam entered the ears of Lord Vishwambara. As soon as he heard this word, the devotion of the speaker affected the Lord, and he fell down unconscious, overcome with loving spiritual ecstasy. All the students were amazed at the sight. After remaining in trance for a while, the Lord regained his external consciousness. When he was able to speak, the Lord said to Ratnagarbhacharya, "Go on, go on." He rolled on the ground in ecstasy. The Lord continued to urge him on, saying, "Go on, go on." The Brahmana continued to read, and everyone followed on the nectarian ocean of love of Krishna. Unrestrained tears from the Lord's eyes flowed the entire world. All the ecstatic symptoms like shivering, horripication, and crying manifested in the Lord's person. The Brahmana was extremely happy, and he continued to read the shlokas with great inspiration. The Lord was very satisfied with the Brahmana's devotion, and he embraced him warmly. Upon being touched, Ratnagarbha Acharya experienced immense bliss. He fell down and in tears of love held the Lord's lotus feet. From that moment on, he became entrapped by love of Lord Chaitanya. He continuously read the shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Lord responded, replying loudly, "Go on, go on." The people who completely amazed at this sight, and they realized that something extraordinary was taking place. Then Gadadhara Pandit intervened and told the Acharya, "Do not read any further." Ratnagarbha Acharya stopped reading, and they all sat down surrounding the Lord. When external consciousness returned to the Lord, he inquired, "Tell me what happened. Did I act very restlessly?" The student replied, "What ability do we have to explain your activities? All we know is that you are very fortunate." The Lord's friends and relatives discouraged them and said, "Do not praise him like this." The Lord now withdrew his emotions within himself and accompanied all the students to the bank of Ganga. The Lord sprinkled some water upon his head, offered his obeisances to the Ganga, and sat down upon her bank. Nimai Pandit, the son of Sachimata, sat with all students discussing topics about Krishna, just as Lord Krishna had sat with all the young damsels of Vrindavana upon the banks of Yamuna. He spent some time with the boys, and then everyone returned to their respective homes. The Lord returned to his home, and after his meal lay down to rest, just as Mahavishnu lies down for Yoga Nidra, mystic slumber. After a good night's sleep, the students returned early in the morning with their books to see the Lord. Lord went for his daily ablution to the Ganga. Upon returning, he sat down with his students and began explaining and commenting on the different aspects of grammar. However, all of his explanations and commentaries resolved around one subject, around Krishna and the process of devotional service to the Lord. The students inquired, "What is the definition of dhatu, verbal root?" The Lord replied, "They are the energy of Lord Krishna." My dear students, I will now explain the aphorism of verbal root. Let me see who can refute my explanation. There have been many kings with beautiful bodies decorated with golden ornaments, flower garlands, and sandalwood paste. People say that they are representative of Lakshmi, the goddesses of fortune, and their words are the words of Yamaraj, the presiding demigod of religious principle. Let me explain to you what happens when dhatu life leaves their body. Where go the physical beauty, decoration, and power of this king? Some of their kingly bodies are returned into ashes, and others are buried beneath the earth. Lord Krishna is present within everybody in the form of his energy, Dhatu. Living entities are attracted to and love this life energy. In this way, they offer their devotion to him. All other so called scholars and teachers are very confused. They do not understand the meaning of Dhatu, verbal root. So, all of you now listen attentively. The kingly person who was for so many long worshipped and respected become contaminated as soon as life leaves him, and if his body is touched, one must take a bath. The son who spent happy hours upon the laps of his father must touch fire to the dead father's mouth and burn his body to ashes. Therefore, the definition of Dhatu, essential substance, is the energy of Lord Krishna, that is loved by everyone. Now, I want to see if there is anyone capable of refuting this explanation. The essential energy of Krishna is pure, transcendental, and worshipable. Thus, one should develop unflinching faith and devotion to Lord Krishna. Just chant Krishna's name, worship his lotus feet, and hear only the names of Lord Krishna. Spend all of your time meditating upon the lotus feet of the Krishna. Just take shelter of lotus feet of the son of Nanda Maharaja. For if one simply worships the lotus feet with a little water, grass or leaf, then the Lord of Death can never approach. Just worship he who has, by killing Akasura, Bakasura and Putana, given them liberation. Ajamil, at the point of death, cries out his son's name, Narayaea. Even after a sinful life, by worshipping the Lord's lotus feet and remembering the Lord, he gave up attachment and went to the spiritual sky, the Vaikuntha planets. Simply take shelter of the supreme lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Lord Shiva and Lakshmi Devi are always desirous of worshipping those lotus feet in humility. Lord Anantasesa eternally glorifies the wonderful mercy of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. As long as there is life within the body and strength in the limbs and mind, take shelter of devotional service to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Krishna is your mother, Krishna is your father, and Krishna is your every life and soul, is your very life and soul. Simply embrace his lotus feet and offer your mind, words, and body completely unto him. Lord Vishwambara, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, explained the devotional mood of servitorship to himself. He continued for hours, unaware that it was already past noon. With undivided attention, as if hypnotized, the students listened. No one wished to disturb or make contradictory remarks. One must understand that these students were not ordinary mortals. They were all servants of Lord Krishna. Otherwise, how could they be personally taught by the Supreme Lord Krishna? After a while, Lord Vishwambara came out from his trance and looked at everyone. A little ashamed and shy, he asked, "How were my explanation upon verbal root?" The student replied, "You have revealed the truth to us. Your explanation upon the word meaning are impossible to be refuted, to contradict by anyone. All of your explanations are eternal truth. The references we use to our ordinary understanding may comply with the present day grammatical concepts of the so-called scholars, but we can now understand that these are not the proper meaning." The Lord said, Can any of you explain how my disorder of the life air is influenced my mind? Instead of explaining the nature of verbal root, I do not know who or what I am talking about. The students replied, "You have always described the glories of the holy names of Krishna. All of your commentaries, definitions, and purport describe Lord Krishna and his transcendental potencies. Who can understand such ecstatic position, subject of matters? The transformation that we see comes over you as soon as you hear the transcendental subject matters of Krishna Leela and Krishna's holy name, and so wonderful that we cannot think of you as an ordinary personality." The Lord inquired, "What sort of transformation have you seen in me?" The students replied, "They were marvelous. Different emotions played upon, shivering, and a great flow of tears. Your entire body was covered with horripilation. We have never seen anything like this before. Yesterday, we accompanied you to the banks of the Ganga, where you explained to us from our books. In one of the nearby houses, a Brahmana was reciting a shloka, and suddenly you fell down unconscious, as if the life air had left your body. We were bewildered and amazed when you came out of your trance. Unrestricted tears poured from your eyes in streams like the flowing of the Ganga. Finally, you began shivering so uncontrollably that even 1,000 men could not have held you still. Horripilation covered you from head to toe, and you laid upon the ground as if a golden statue was laid down in the dust. Everyone present marveled at you. Some said that you were the Supreme Lord Narayan. Others suggested that you were Srila Vyasadeva, Sukadev Goswami, Narad Muni, or even Prahlad Maharaj, and that you were certainly equal to them in receiving the Supreme Lord's mercy. All of us got together and tightly held you down, and gradually your external consciousness returned. You were unaware of what we had just described. We wish to tell you something more. Please listen to us attentively. For the last 10 days, all your explanations upon words, meanings, and aphorisms have described the process of devotional service to the Lord Krishna and the glories of the holy names of Krishna. Therefore, for the last 10 days, we have not been able to follow the lessons in the books. We were a little fearful to tell you this. You profound eradicate can explain unlimited meanings for words. It is truly amazing. No one can equal that feat. The Lord replied, 10 days without studies? Was it not your duty to tell me about this sooner? The students replied, "Your explanations were very correct. Lord Krishna is certainly the eternal truth. This is the verdict of all the scriptures. Your explanations on the supreme absolute truth is absolute education and is the essence of all scripture, but we were unable to understand them due to our own false and limited intelligence." These words greatly pleased the Lord. He gently blessed them and said, "My dear students, you have truly spoken the truth. My words are not meant for others. I always speak in this way because I am constantly thinking and seeing a little boy with a blackish blue complexion playing the flute. All I hear is the name of Krishna, and everywhere I behold the spiritual world of Goloka Vrindavana. Therefore, I humbly apologize for all of you, for I shall now not teach any more. I give you complete freedom to go to anyone that you wish and study under him. To tell you the truth, I cannot speak about anything other than Lord Krishna, his names and his pastimes. Therefore, it will not be possible for me to teach you any more in this condition. Lord Vishvambara then tied his books together and handed them to the students with tears in his eyes. The students then spoke upon, "We have also decided, following your desire, to give up our studies. Once we have studied under you, how can we find another teacher with the ability to explain and teach the way you do?" The thought of separation from their teacher was too heavy burden for the students to bear, and they began to lament. They said, "These explanations that we have heard from you, we want to treasure it out in our heart, birth after birth, for our meditation. What is the use of studying further, and of whom would we go? And to whom would we go? All that we have learned from you is more than sufficient for us." Overcome with emotion, with folded hands, they prayed to the Lord and tied up their books. The students were now extremely happy, and they jubilantly shouted Lord Hari's name. Lord Vishvambara embraced his students and began to weep. Everyone was drawn in waves of joy, their voice choked with ecstatic bliss. The son of Mother Sachi, Sri Nityananda, Sri Chaitanya, then blessed them, saying, "If I ever become a true servant of Sri Krishna, then may all your desire be fulfilled. All of you, please take shelter of Lord Krishna and always chant the holy names of Lord Krishna. Try to hear Krishna's name always, and may Krishna become your most precious object, your very life and soul. Whatever you have studied so far, that is enough. There is no need to study any further. Now all of you get together and chant Lord Krishna's name in one place. By Krishna's mercy, may the purpose of all the scriptures manifest within you. All of you are my dearmost friends, birth after birth." The word of the Lord were like nectar in the students' ears, and they became extremely happy. I offer my obeisances unto the feet of all such students who are so elevated and fortunate to become the direct disciples of the Supreme Lord, Sri Vishvambara. All of them are eternal servants of the Supreme Lord Krishna. How could it be any other way? Krishna himself personally taught them. One is freed from material bondage just by seeing that person who has seen this wonderful scholarly pastimes of the Supreme Lord. What a miserable birth I have taken, that I was excluded from seeing such transcendental pastimes and sights of the Lord. O Lord, I pray for your mercy that these pastimes of you, in the mood of the scholar, may remain eternally within my heart. The Lord of Vaikuntha appeared in Narayaea to teach in the mood of the scholar. The signs of his appearance are still visible now. The transcendental pastimes of the Lords are eternal and unlimited, without beginning or end. The scriptures describe his eternal pastimes as unmanifested and manifest. The Lord was now beginning his pastime of the congregational chanting of the holy names, which is the ultimate of all learning education. Fearing separation, the Lord's student became emotional and wept. The Lord was much moved, and he spoke unformatting words to them. Now you can fulfill the purpose of your studies by chanting and singing the holy name of Krishna. The students inquired, "O Lord, we do not know how to perform this Sankirtana. Kindly teach us." The Lord began singing, "Hare Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudanam. Lord Vishwambara then demonstrated to his students as he clapped his hands and led the students in a beautiful kirtan. Shri Vishwambara is the Lord and propagator of the kirtan of the holy names of Krishna, and he now sang the Lord's holy name surrounded by his students. He was in an ecstatic trance, tasting the intoxicating nectar of his own name. Rolling upon the ground, oblivious to everything around him, he repeated, sing on, and kept falling to the ground. The earth seemed to split open each time he crashed to the ground. The residents of Navadvipa, hearing the commotion coming from the Lord's house, rushed to that spot. Also, when the neighboring Vaishnavas heard the loud kirtan, came to Lord Chaitanya's house. The Vaishnavas saw the Lord's ecstatic trance, and they marveled deep within themselves. Feeling great happiness, they thought, at long last Kirtan has made an appearance in Navadvipa. In the entire universe, where is there the practice and propagation of such a rare devotional service? Just devotional ecstasy is the perfection of sight. This very same Vishwambara has been the epitome of arrogance, but now even Narad Muni and other great devotees can hardly achieve the devotional ecstasy that he spontaneously manifests. If such a degree of devotion is exhibited by such a once arrogant personality, we do not understand the will of Lord Krishna and what the future will bring. Sometimes later, Lord Vishwambara came out of his ecstatic trance and repeated, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Although external consciousness had returned, Lord spoke nothing about his mundane world. He just embraced all the Vaishnavas and cried. Finding the Lord agitated by ecstatic emotions, the Vaishnavas pacified the Lord. Feeling great joy, they then left the Lord's house. Affected by the Lord's Krishna prema, many of the Lord's students took to the path of renunciation, cultivating detachment from material existence and attachment to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Gloriously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had initiated the congregational chanting of the holy names of Sri Krishna as the essence of perfection. Manifesting himself, the Supreme Lord had commenced the freely and profusely distribute the nectar of his name, thus washing away all of the sufferings of all the Vaishnava devotees in Navadvipa. In this way, the glorious Sankirtana movement was started by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.